The night smelled of wet earth and something sweeter, something metallic beneath the jasmine. In the locked greenhouse of Haverford Manor, beneath a roof of starlit glass, Sir Reginald Haverford sat dead among his black lilies, throat opened ear to ear, eyes wide as though astonished by his own reflection in the dark petals. Chapter 1. The Summons in the Storm. The storm had come upon them like a vengeful spirit, unbidden and unrelenting, as if the very heavens conspired to shroud the night in secrecy. Rain lashed the windows of the first-class compartment with the fury of 1,000 accusatory fingers, blurring the world outside into a smear of ink-black fields and skeletal hedgerows. The London to Colchester Express rattled onward through the Essex darkness, its lanterns casting feeble, wavering pools of amber light that danced mockingly across the polished mahogany panels. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of damp wool, pipe tobacco, and the faint, metallic tang of ozone, a prelude, perhaps, to the metallic scent that awaited them in the shadowed garden. Hercule Poirot sat bolt upright in the corner seat, his diminutive frame a study in immaculate precision amid the chaos. His patent leather shoes gleamed untouched by mud or moisture. His trousers creased with razor sharpness, his waistcoat a subtle stripe of grey silk buttoned to perfection. Only his magnificent moustaches, waxed to points as sharp as daggers, betrayed the slightest quiver as the carriage swayed. In his gloved hands, he cradled a diminutive silver moustache cup, filled not with the coarse English tea, but with a delicate tisane of chamomile and verbena, imported from the sun-drenched hills of Provence. He sipped it methodically, his green eyes, sharp as emeralds in the gaslight, fixed upon the telegram that lay unfolded on the table between them. Across from him, Captain Arthur Hastings sprawled in ill-concealed discomfort, his military bearing softened by years of civilian indolence and the relentless pounding of the storm. His face, weathered by the trenches of the Great War, was etched deeper now with lines of bewilderment. He adjusted his tie for the third time, tugged at the cuffs of his tweed jacket, and cleared his throat with the awkward rumble of a man unused to silence. "Old chap," Hastings ventured at last, his voice rising above the din. "This telegram, it's dashed peculiar, isn't it? Sir Reginald Haverford insists you come at once. Says his life hangs by a thread. And something about a garden that walks at night. What on earth does that mean? Sounds like one of those penny dreadfuls my sister reads." Poirot did not look up immediately. Instead, he twirled the stem of his cup between thumb and forefinger, a rhythmic motion as precise as the ticking of a Swiss chronometer. The telegram, yellowed and creased from hasty dispatch, bore the imprint of Haverford Manor in elegant copperplate. Urgent. Poirot. Train immediately. Life by thread. Garden. Walks midnight. Key enclosed. Haverford. "Mon ami," Poirot murmured at last, his voice a velvet murmur, laced with the unmistakable lilt of Liège. "The English and their gardens. They cultivate them with such passion, such devotion, as if the very soil holds the secrets of the soul. But a garden that walks? Ah, that is not the fancy of a novelist. That is the whisper of fear, the fear of a man who senses the shadows lengthening." Hastings leaned forward, his blue eyes wide. "Fear? You mean he's in danger? But why you, Poirot? You've not crossed paths with this Haverford before, have you?" Poirot's lips curved in a faint, enigmatic smile. "No, no. But Hercule Poirot is known, is he not, to those who dwell in the corridors of power, in the drawing-rooms of the Haut Monde. Sir Reginald Haverford, botanist extraordinaire, collector of the rare and the perilous, master of Haverford Manor. His name echoes in the annals of the Royal Horticultural Society. Expeditions to the Amazon, the Himalayas. He has plucked flowers from the jaws of death itself. And now he summons me. Why? Because Hastings, when the ordinary constabulary fails, when Scotland Yard scratches its collective head, they call upon the little grey cells. The train lurched violently as lightning cracked the sky, illuminating the compartment for a split second in blinding white. Hastings flinched. Poirot did not. In his pocket, heavy against his waistcoat, lay the key, a small ornate brass affair, etched with the motif of a blooming lily. It had arrived bundled with the telegram at his Baker Street lodgings scarcely 3 hours prior, delivered by a sodden boy on a bicycle who vanished into the fog like a ghost. Tell me, Hastings, Poirot continued, folding the telegram with exquisite care. What do you know of Haverford Manor? Hastings shrugged, rummaging in his memory like a man searching for a lost glove. Big pile in Essex, isn't it? Old family seat. Haverford's a widower. Lost his wife years ago. Some tragedy in the garden, I think. Poison or some such. Keeps to himself mostly. Tinkers with his plants. Rumors of a nephew sniffing about the inheritance. A secretary who's more than just shorthand. Oh, and that botanist chap, Dr. Crow. They say Haverford saved his life on some jungle jaunt. Poirot nodded slowly, his mind a whirlwind of orderly compartments. Précisément. Motives, my friend. Motives are the roots from which murder grows. Money, love, revenge, the eternal trinity. And this garden that walks? It speaks of the supernatural, perhaps, or of a clever illusion to mask a human hand. Hastings chuckled nervously. Supernatural? Come now, Poirot. You're not buying into ghost stories? Ghosts, Hastings? Bah. The dead do not walk. But the living, they imitate the dead with alarming skill. Remember Styles? The poison that seemed a suicide? Or the mill on the moor with its spectral lights? The captain's face paled. He had been there for those cases, had seen Poirot unravel the impossible. Right you are. But this key, why send it to you? Poirot patted his pocket. Because, mon capitaine, Sir Reginald locks himself away tonight, in his greenhouse, the heart of his domain. The only key he entrusts to Poirot, to prove perhaps that no intruder could enter, or to lure the killer into the trap. The conversation lapsed as the train conductor passed, his lantern swinging like a pendulum. Next stop, Ingatestone, gents. Storm's a brute. Mind the step. Poirot rose smoothly, straightening his overcoat, a masterpiece of double-breasted wool, lined in silk. We change here, Hastings. A motor car awaits, no doubt. The manor is but 10 miles distant. Hastings crooned. In this weather, we'll be drowned rats. Patience, my friend. The storm is but the overture to the drama. They alighted at Ingatestone Station amid sheets of rain, the platform a desolate slick of puddles reflecting the gas lamps like shattered mirrors. A hulking Daimler waited, its brass radiator cap in the shape of a snarling griffin, engine idling with a throaty purr. The chauffeur, a gaunt man in oilskins named Wilkins, touched his cap. Mr. Poirot, Sir Reginald's compliments. Drive like the devil himself, sir. Oui, Poirot replied crisply. The devil awaits. The car plunged into the night, headlights carving twin tunnels through the deluge. Essex unfolded around them, a tapestry of ancient oaks, twisted by wind, manor houses lurking behind ivy-choked walls. Hastings clutched the door handle as they skidded around bends, the gravel spitting like gunfire. Steady on, Wilkins, Hastings bellowed, Sorry, governor. Master's urgent. Said if you ain't here by midnight, it'll be too late. Poirot leaned forward. And what else did your master say, mon brave? Wilkins hesitated, eyes on the road. Something queer, sir. The lilies sing tonight. Beggin' pardon, but it gave me the chills. Lilies that sing, gardens that walk. Poirot's mind catalogued the anomalies, each a thread in the emerging tapestry. As the miles melted away, Poirot's thoughts drifted to the victim, or the man who soon might be. Sir Reginald Haverford, 63, knighted for services to botany, a man whose fortune stemmed not from trade but from the green veins of the earth. His wife, Lady Eleanor, had perished a decade past in that very garden. Monkshood poisoning ruled suicide, but whispers of foul play lingered like morning mist. The household, Mrs. Delafontaine, the housekeeper, loyal as a spaniel, but with eyes that darted like a fox. Miss Felicity Grey, the secretary, young and comely, rumored to warm the master's bed. Colonel Arbuthnot, the house guest, a war hero haunted by phantoms. Young Julian Haverford, the nephew, a playboy with gambling debts. And Dr. Lysander Crowe, the botanist, scarred from the Amazon, his gratitude toward Haverford as thin as vellum. Each a suspect, each with a shadow. The car crested a hill, and Haverford Manor materialized. From the gloom, a sprawling Jacobean pile of weathered stone, turrets piercing the storm clouds like accusatory fingers. Windows glowed yellow against the black, wards against the night. The driveway, lined with yew trees, ancient as druids, led to a porte cochere where figures huddled under umbrellas. Wilkins braked sharply. Here we are, sirs. Poirot stepped out, umbrella snapping open. Rain drummed a tattoo on the silk. Hastings followed, cursing as water soaked his trousers. Mrs. Delafontaine awaited, a formidable woman of 50, her face pale as curds beneath a starched cap. Mr. Poirot, thank God. Sir Reginald. He locked himself in the greenhouse at 11. Gave you the key, he said. But we heard voices, singing, women's voices clear as crystal. Then silence. Poirot's eyes narrowed. And the time now? 12:30, sir. Midnight has passed. Hastings glanced at the manor gardens, vast and impenetrable in the rain. Somewhere amid the labyrinth of hedges and arbors lay the greenhouse, a glass cathedral to exotic peril. Poirot touched the key in his pocket. It felt colder now, heavier. Let on, madame, he said softly, for the garden walks, and Hercule Poirot must hurry to catch it. They moved toward the darkness, the storm's howl drowning all but the pounding of Poirot's heart, a metronome counting down to revelation. But as they crossed the threshold of the yew avenue, a sound pierced the gale, faint, ethereal, rising from the garden depths. Singing, women's voices, wordless and mournful. The lilies sang. Chapter 2. The House That Breathed. Haverford Manor did not merely stand. It breathed. The great black oak doors groaned open as though the house itself exhaled after holding its breath for a century. A gust of warm, hot house air rolled out. Jasmine, damp soil, and something darker, like bruised orchids left too long in water. The scent clung to the back of the throat, sweet and cloying, the way secrets cling to velvet curtains. Mrs. Delafontaine stood framed in the doorway, candle in hand, her face a mask of chalk and shadow. 50 years old, yet tonight she looked 70. Her starched apron trembled against her hips. He is in the greenhouse, she whispered, as if the walls might overhear. Locked in since 11. We heard singing, then nothing. Poirot stepped across the threshold. The flagstones were cold even through the soles of his button shoes. He paused, nostrils flaring. Jasmine, he murmured. And something else. Night blooming Sirius, no. But also monkshood. Aconitum napellus, the queen of poisons. Mrs. de la Fontaine's hand flew to her throat. How did you? Because Hercule Poirot notices what others ignore, madame. And because Lady Eleanor Haverford died of monkshood in this very garden 10 years ago. Officially suicide. Unofficially. He let the word hang like incense. Hastings shivered behind him, shaking rain from his hat. Dash it, Poirot. Let's not stand here cataloguing flowers while a man may be dying. They moved into the entrance hall. It was vast, baronial, oppressive. A fire roared in the grate, yet the warmth did not reach the bones. Portraits glared down, Haverfords in periwigs, Haverfords in scarlet coats, Haverfords with the cold eyes of men who had owned other men. The newest portrait, Sir Reginald himself, hung slightly askew, as though someone had recently struck it. Poirot's gaze flicked to it and lingered. He looks afraid, he observed softly. Mrs. de la Fontaine closed the doors. The wind died with a sigh. Everyone is afraid tonight, Mr. Poirot. The house has not been right since the singing started 3 nights ago. Singing, Hastings asked. Women's voices, from the garden, after midnight. The same voices we heard tonight, just before Sir Reginald locked himself in. Her voice cracked. He said only you could save him, sir. Gave orders that no one was to approach the greenhouse until you arrived. Said he'd left the only key with you. Poirot withdrew the brass lily key from his waistcoat pocket and held it up to the candlelight. It glinted like a drop of blood. Then let us not keep Sir Reginald waiting. They passed through corridors lined with botanical specimens in glass cases, pressed orchids, the color of bruises, carnivorous plants, with mouths like green traps, a single black lily preserved in spirits, its petals furled like a fist. The air grew warmer, heavier. Somewhere, water dripped with monotonous precision. Mrs. de la Fontaine led them to a green baize door at the rear of the house. Beyond it, a conservatory opened onto the gardens. Through the glass, lightning revealed a path of York stone leading to the greenhouse, a great dome of iron and glass, glowing faintly from within like a lantern in a graveyard. Poirot paused at the threshold. Tell me, madame, who precisely is in the house tonight? She counted on her fingers, each name falling like a stone into still water. Myself, Miss Felicity Grey, Sir Reginald's secretary. She's in her room, crying since supper. Colonel Arbuthnot, house guest these 3 weeks. He's in the billiard room, drinking brandy and staring at nothing. Dr. Lysander Crow, the botanist. He went to his laboratory above the stables an hour ago, said he had cultures to tend. And young Mr. Julian Haverford, the nephew, he telephoned from London at 10, said he'd catch the milk train and arrive by dawn. Poirot's eyes gleamed. 5 souls in the house, 5 motives perhaps, and the 6th, Sir Reginald, now silent behind locked glass. He stepped out into the storm. The rain had eased to a cold mist. The garden breathed around them, yews whispering, gravel crunching like bones underfoot. The greenhouse loomed ahead, its panes fogged, a single lamp burning inside like a watchful eye. Poirot approached the door, heavy iron, painted forest green. A stout Yale lock. He inserted the lily key. It turned with a soft, reluctant click. The door opened. Heat rolled out, humid and floral, thick enough to choke on. And there, in the center of the aisle, between towering black lilies, sat Sir Reginald Haverford, quite dead. He was slumped in a wicker chair facing the door, as though waiting for them. His throat had been cut, clean, deep, ear to ear. Blood had poured down his white shirt front in a dark bib, pooling on the slate tiles among scattered petals. His eyes were wide, reflecting the lamp flame. In his right hand, he still clutched a single black lily, its bloom fully open, obscene and perfect. Yet the greenhouse door had been locked from the inside. The only windows were high transoms, far too narrow for a man. No weapon anywhere, no footprints in the soft earth of the beds, save Sir Reginald's own, leading from potting bench to chair. Hastings made a strangled sound. Mrs. Delafontaine screamed once, then pressed her apron to her mouth. Poirot alone moved forward, gloved fingers already tracing the air above the wound. "Death within the last hour," he murmured. "The blood is scarcely congealed. And yet, regardless," he pointed to the floor. "No trail of blood from anywhere else. He was killed precisely where he sits." He bent closer to the dead man's face. And this expression, mon Dieu. Not pain, not fear, astonishment, as though he beheld something impossible in his final moment. Straightening, Poirot's gaze swept the greenhouse. The black lilies, Lilium noctis amazonas, towered 9 feet tall on every side, their velvet petals drinking the lamplight. One bloom had been placed, almost tenderly, across Sir Reginald's lap like a funeral tribute. Tucked into his waistcoat pocket, a calling card. Poirot withdrew it, with tweezers from his pocket. He never travelled without them. Elegant creamstock, black ink, for the garden remembers what men forget. No signature. Only the faint, unmistakable scent of night-blooming cereus. Hastings found his voice. "Poirot." The door was locked. "Key in your pocket." "How?" Poirot turned, eyes glittering brighter than the lamp. "That, mon ami, is the wrong question." He held up the card. "The right question is, why did Sir Reginald arrange his own murder so perfectly, and then invite Hercule Poirot to witness the impossible?" From somewhere deep in the garden, beyond the glass, beyond the mist, came the women's voices again, soft, mournful, closer now. The lilies were still singing. Chapter 3. The Lily That Drinks Blood. The greenhouse did not feel like a place of death. It felt like a place of worship, and the black lilies were its congregation. They stood in perfect rows, 9 feet tall, stems thick as a man's wrist, leaves glossy and cruel. Their blooms, each the span of a dinner plate, were the color of dried blood left too long in moonlight. The petals, velvet soft, curled inward as though guarding a secret. And from every throat rose a scent so intense it was almost a taste. Honey, decay, and something metallic that coated the tongue. Poirot moved down the central aisle with the reverence of a priest entering a cathedral. His footsteps made no sound on the damp slate. Hastings followed, revolver half drawn, eyes darting to every shadow. Mrs. Delafontaine had remained outside. The sight of her master's open throat had been more than 30 years of loyal service could bear. The lamp on the potting bench cast a circle of gold around the body. Sir Reginald's head had fallen forward. The wound gaped like a second smiling mouth. Yet the blood had not sprayed. It had poured, straight and true, as though the cut had been made by a surgeon who knew exactly how deep to go. Poirot crouched, careful not to disturb the petals scattered like black confetti. "Observe, Hastings," he said softly. "The wound is horizontal, perfectly so. One stroke. No hesitation marks, none. The blade, very sharp, very thin, entered here." He indicated a point beneath the left ear, "and exited here, the carotid, the jugular, both severed. Death in seconds." Hastings swallowed. "But the weapon, Poirot. There's nothing. Not a razor, not a knife, nothing." "Patience," Poirot's gloved fingers hovered over the dead man's lap. The single black lily lay across his thighs, stem snapped cleanly. This flower was cut tonight. See how the sap still beads, fresh as tears. He lifted the bloom delicately. Beneath it, something glinted. A thread, almost invisible, thinner than cobweb, yet when Poirot drew it between finger and thumb, it resisted like wire. Mon Dieu, he breathed. Spider silk, Nephila clavipes, the golden orb weaver of the Amazon, stronger than steel of the same thickness. A garrote made of this would leave no trace upon the skin, yet sever flesh as cleanly as a razor. Hastings stared. You're saying someone strangled him first, then cut his throat? No, I am saying the throat was cut with the silk itself. Regard the edges of the wound, microscopic serrations, almost invisible. Silk, when pulled with sufficient force across living tissue. He did not finish. He did not need to. From the far end of the greenhouse came the soft creak of wicker. A door? A window? The sound was swallowed by the thick air. Hastings swung his revolver. Who's there? Silence. Only the slow drip of condensation from the glass roof. Poirot rose, eyes narrowed to slits. We are not alone, mon ami. The garden watches. He moved swiftly now, threading between the towering lilies toward the sound. The plants seemed to lean inward, petals brushing his shoulders like curious fingers. At the eastern wall, he found a small ventilation pane, 6 inches square, standing ajar. Rain misted through. Too small for a man, Hastings muttered. Oui, but large enough for a thread. Poirot examined the iron frame. See? A tiny nick here, fresh. The silk was anchored, drawn across the aisle at throat height, then released. When Sir Reginald sat, as he always did, to watch the midnight blooming, the thread kissed his neck. He straightened, turning back to the body. But why did he sit? Why place himself in the noose? As if in answer, a new scent drifted across the greenhouse, faint at first, then overpowering, sweet, dizzying. The black lilies were opening wider, throats dilating like pupils in darkness. Pollen, fine as gold dust, drifted in the lamplight. Poirot inhaled once, sharply, then pinched his nostrils shut. Paralytic pollen, he said, voice muffled. Induces euphoria, then torpor. Within minutes, the limbs grow heavy, the eyelids fall. Sir Reginald came here to confront his fear. Instead, the flowers sang him to sleep, and the thread sang him to death. Hastings swayed. Poirot gripped his arm, steering him toward the door. We must leave. The concentration rises. They stumbled out into the cold night air. The mist had thickened. The garden was a grey sea. Somewhere an owl called, mournful. Behind them, the greenhouse lamp flickered once and steadied, as though the lilies had taken a breath. Mr. Poirot, thank God you've come. A tall figure emerged from the fog, lean, ascetic, dressed in a botanist's leather apron over evening clothes. His left cheek bore a ragged scar that pulled his mouth into a permanent half-smile. Dr. Lysander Crowe. His eyes, pale grey, almost colourless, took in the open greenhouse door, the lamplight spilling across the gravel, the two men breathing hard. He's dead, isn't he? Crowe asked quietly. Poirot studied him. You knew he would be. I feared it. He sent for me at 10, raving about ghosts and singing flowers. I gave him a sedative, refused. Said he must stay awake tonight of all nights. Then he locked himself in. Crowe's scar twitched. I was in my laboratory, cultures to tend. I heard nothing. Poirot's smile was thin. You heard nothing, Doctor? Not the women's voices that the entire household heard? Crowe met his gaze without flinching. I heard the storm. For a long moment, the only sound was the slow drip of water from the yew trees. Then Poirot inclined his head, almost courteous. Naturellement. But tell me, Dr. Crow, why do the black lilies bloom only on the anniversary of the night Sir Reginald left you to die in Brazil? Crow's scar went white. Before he could answer, a scream shattered the night, high, feminine, coming from the upper windows of the manor. Miss Felicity Grey stood at her bedroom casement, nightgown plastered to her body by rain, hair wild. "He's here," she shrieked. "The ghost, he's in the garden. I saw him, white face among the lilies." She pointed a trembling finger toward the greenhouse, where, for one heartbeat, every black bloom had turned, as though on a single stem, to face the house. Then the lamp inside guttered and went out. Darkness swallowed the garden, and from the depths of the lilies came the singing again, closer, clearer, a woman's voice calling a name none of them could quite catch. Chapter 4. The Colonel's Midnight Walk. The billiard room smelled of peat whiskey, wet wool, and old war. Colonel Aubrey Arbuthnot stood at the green baize table as though it were a parapet, cue in one hand, tumbler in the other. The firelight carved deep trenches beneath his eyes. His moustache, once the pride of the 14th Hussars, drooped like a battle standard after defeat. He wore his scarlet mess jacket despite the hour, medals dulled by smoke. He did not turn when Poirot and Hastings entered, only stared at the scattered balls as if they were villages he had failed to hold. "Ghastly business," he said to the table. His voice was parade-ground loud, yet cracked at the edges. "Reggie always said the jungle would come for him one day. Seems it has." Poirot closed the door softly. "You were fond of him, mon colonel." Arbuthnot laughed, a short, barking sound. "Fond? We bled together in Flanders, man and boy. Then he dragged me to Brazil in 19 to hunt his damned orchids. I carried him out of the green hell with fever in his bones. He carried me out of no man's land with half my leg shot away. Debts like that don't get paid in coin." He drained the whiskey in one motion, set the glass down with military precision. Poirot took the opposite end of the table, rolling the white ball gently between gloved fingers. "Yet, tonight you walked the garden at 12:30. Arbuthnot stiffened. "Who says so?" "Your boots, Colonel? The Essex clay is distinctive, red, iron-rich. There is a crescent of it on the left heel, still wet. And the cuff of your trousers bears a leaf, Dictamnus albus, the gas plant. It grows only along the southern path, beside the lily house." Arbuthnot looked down, as if seeing his own legs for the first time. "Devil take your eyes, Poirot. Tell me what you saw." The colonel poured another measure, with a hand that trembled only slightly. "Couldn't sleep. Shell shock, don't you know? The thunder reminded me of the guns. Took a turn outside to clear the head. Heard singing, women's voices, faint, coming from the greenhouse direction. Thought it was—" He stopped. "Lady Eleanor," Poirot finished gently. Arbuthnot's eyes filled. 10 years since she poisoned herself with monkshood. Walked into the white border at dusk and ate the flowers like sweets. Reggie found her at moonrise, lips blue, smiling. Said she'd finally escaped him. He stared into the fire. "I saw her tonight, by God. Same white dress, same long, pale hair, standing between the black lilies, beckoning." He turned suddenly savage. "Don't tell me it was fancy. I know what I saw." Poirot laid the cue down. "You saw what someone wished you to see. A lantern slide, perhaps, or a phonograph hidden among the stems. The mind had 3 parts whiskey and 1 part terror is wonderfully suggestible. Arbuthnot's face purpled. Are you calling me a drunk and a fool? I am calling you a witness, Colonel, and witnesses must be precise. Did the apparition speak? No, only raised her hand, pointed toward the greenhouse. Then the thunder cracked, and she was gone. Poirot nodded, as though a small piece had clicked into place. And at what exact moment did the singing cease? Arbuthnot frowned, memory struggling through the fog. Right after the lightning flash, like someone switched it off. Précisément. Poirot moved to the window. Rain streaked the panes. The garden beyond was a void. The storm was your accomplice, Colonel. It masked footsteps, muffled voices, concealed the mechanism. Someone used your ghosts against you. Arbuthnot sank into a leather armchair, suddenly old. Then Reggie really was murdered. Murdered with exquisite care. Locked room, impossible weapon, supernatural trimmings. A crime designed to terrify as much as to kill. Crow's scar looked livid in the firelight. The local constable is here, wants statements, and the undertaker's van is stuck in the mud at the gate. His pale eyes flicked to Arbuthnot. You look as though you've seen a ghost, Colonel. Arbuthnot surged to his feet, cue raised like a rifle. Keep a civil tongue, Crow. You always hated Reggie. Don't think we've forgotten Brazil. Crow did not flinch. Hate is a strong word. I preferred gratitude. He did, after all, leave me to die of black water fever while he sailed home with my specimens and my reputation. The room crackled with old poison. Poirot stepped between them, small but immovable. Monsieur, enough. The dead man deserves better than a brawl over his corpse. Dr. Crow, you will accompany me to the greenhouse. I require your expertise on the paralytic pollen. Colonel, you will remain here and write down every detail of your midnight walk. Times, directions, exact words of the singing, if you caught any. Captain Hastings will take your statement. Arbuthnot opened his mouth to protest, then closed it. The habit of command recognized its match. Crow gave a curt nod and turned on his heel. Poirot followed, pausing at the door. One last thing, Colonel. The apparition. Did she wear a wedding ring? Arbuthnot blinked. Yes, I think so. Glinted when she pointed. Poirot's eyes glittered. Lady Eleanor was buried without her ring. Sir Reginald kept it in a locket around his own neck. Always. He left the Colonel staring into the fire, the cue forgotten in his hand. As Poirot and Crow walked the southern path, the black lilies loomed on their right, silent now, petals half closed like conspirators. Crow spoke first. You believe I killed him. I believe 5 people had reason. I believe 1 had the knowledge to make spider silk sing. I believe the past is a vine that strangles slowly. Crow stopped beneath a yew arch. Moonlight silvered his scar. Then believe this, Poirot. 17 years ago, in the Mato Grosso, Reginald Haverford took everything from me. My health, my discoveries, the woman I loved. He promised we would share the glory. Instead, he left me delirious in a hut while he steamed downriver with the black lily pressed between the pages of his Bible. When I finally crawled home, he greeted me as his faithful assistant. His voice was soft, almost wondering. Do you know what it is to owe your life to a man you wish dead? Poirot regarded him steadily. I know what it is to see justice served, Docteur. The question is, did you serve it tonight? Before Crow could answer, a new sound drifted across the garden. Closer than before, heartbreakingly clear. A woman singing a lullaby in Portuguese. The same lullaby Crow's Brazilian fiancé had sung on the night Haverford abandoned them both. Crow's face drained of color. The voice was coming from inside the locked greenhouse. Chapter 5. The Secretary's Secret Drawer. Poirot did not knock. He turned the handle of Miss Felicity Gray's bedroom door with the silent authority of a man who has long since ceased to ask permission. The room was lit only by firelight and the blue-white flicker of lightning through the casement. A young woman knelt before the grate, nightgown hem-singed, feeding a bundle of letters to the flames with frantic haste. She whirled at the intrusion, eyes huge, ash on her cheek like a bruise. "Get out!" Her voice cracked between whisper and scream. "This is private." "Murder makes everything public, mademoiselle." Poirot stepped inside, closing the door with a click that sounded, in the hush, like a judge's gavel. Hastings hovered behind him, embarrassed but curious. Felicity Gray was 25, beautiful in the way orchids are beautiful. Delicate, vivid, and faintly dangerous. Her auburn hair had come unpinned. It fell in waves over a dressing gown of peach silk that clung to damp skin. Even terror could not dim her loveliness, and Poirot noted, with the detachment of a jeweler, that she knew it. She made one last, desperate shove of papers into the fire. Too late. Poirot's cane flicked out, hooking the brass tongs from the stand. In a single motion, he rescued a half-burned sheet. The ink had blistered, but the words survived. "If he discovers us, my darling F, he will cut you from the will as surely as he once cut me from his heart. Meet me tonight beneath the black lilies when they open. One kiss before everything changes." The signature was a single initial. J. Felicity lunged for the letter. Poirot lifted it out of reach. "J for Julian?" he asked gently. "The nephew who gambles in London and telephones his alibis? Or J for jealousy, perhaps?" She backed against the mantel, breathing hard. "It's not what you think." "Then, illuminate me, mademoiselle. Because at present, it looks very much like a lover's tryst in a murder house. On the very night the master is found with his throat opened among his favorite flowers." Tears welled, but did not fall. "Julian and we meant no harm. Sir Reginald was going to change his will tomorrow, disinherit Julian entirely, leave everything to his wretched plants, and to Dr. Crow. Julian would have been ruined. We only wanted to persuade him." "Persuade him," Poirot echoed. "At midnight, beneath the black lilies, with kisses?" Felicity flushed crimson. Nothing happened. Julian never came. He rang from London at 11. Some card game ran late. I waited in the conservatory until the storm grew too fierce, then came upstairs. That is all. Poirot studied her for a long moment. "And the singing? The ghost the colonel saw? You heard nothing?" "I heard the singing," she whispered. "Everyone did. It was her, Lady Eleanor." "I know it was." Poirot's eyebrows rose like drawn bows. "You believe in ghosts, mademoiselle?" "I believe in guilt." She hugged herself. Sir Reginald never forgave himself for her death. He kept her room exactly as she left it. Every year on the anniversary, he walked the white border where she died and spoke to her as though she answered. Tonight was the 10th anniversary. He told me this morning he had finally decided to join her. She turned away, voice breaking. I thought he meant suicide. I never imagined. Poirot moved to the window. Dawn was still hours away. The garden lay drowned in black. Somewhere below, the greenhouse squatted like a crystal tomb. "Tell me about the drawer, mademoiselle." Felicity stiffened. "What drawer?" "The one you opened with the little key on the chatelaine at your waist. The one you closed very quickly when we entered." Silence. Then, defeated, she crossed to a walnut escritoire and unlocked the central drawer. Inside lay a velvet box. She opened it with shaking fingers. A wedding ring, old gold, worn thin, nestled on faded satin. Beside it, a pressed flower, monk's hood, the exact shade of Lady Eleanor's eyes in the portrait downstairs. He gave me the ring 6 months ago, Felicity said, barely audible. Said if anything happened to him, I was to wear it openly. That it would protect me from her. From the dead wife, from the living one. She laughed, a brittle sound. He was mad, Mr. Poirot. The jungle fever never really left him. He believed Eleanor's spirit lived in the black lilies, that she sang to him through their pollen. He said tonight she would finally claim him. Poirot closed the box with a soft snap. And yet someone helped her. Someone of flesh and blood, who knew precisely when the lilies would exhale their narcotic breath. He slipped the box into his pocket. Felicity gasped. That is evidence, mademoiselle. And evidence belongs to justice, not to fear. Hastings cleared his throat. Poirot, old man, look here. He had been examining the singed letters more closely. One fragment bore a different hand, spidery, hurried. If the old man dies tonight, the Brazilian gets nothing. Burn after reading. See, Felicity stared at it, eyes wide. See, Dr. Crow. Or Colonel Arbuthnot, Poirot mused. Or even Mrs. de la Fontaine. Her initial is Constance. So many letters, so many motives. He turned back to the girl. One more thing. When you waited in the conservatory, did you see anyone approach the greenhouse? She shook her head. Only a light, moving between the beds, like a lantern, but green. It went out when the singing began. Poirot's eyes gleamed. A green lantern. Interessant. He bowed, continental and precise. You will remain in this room, mademoiselle. Captain Hastings will lock the door from the outside, for your safety. As they stepped into the corridor, Hastings whispered, Do you believe her? I believe she is terrified. Whether of discovery or of ghosts remains to be seen. They had taken 3 steps when the lights in the corridor flickered and died, plunging the passage into absolute darkness. From the far end came the measured tread of footsteps, slow, deliberate, barefoot on the runner. Then a woman's voice, soft and intimate, directly beside Poirot's ear. You should not have come, little Belgian. The garden is hungry tonight. A breath, cold as grave air, stirred the curls at his temple. The lights flared back on. The corridor was empty. Only a single black beetle lay on the carpet, wet with dew that smelled faintly of blood. Chapter 6. The nephew who arrived too late. Headlights swept across the facade of Haverford Manor like searchlights over a prison yard. A low, rakish Bentley skidded to a halt beneath the porte-cochere, horn blaring in 3 imperious blasts. The driver leapt out almost before the engine died. Tall, fair, 32, dressed for a Mayfair nightclub rather than an Essex storm. Patent evening shoes ruined in an instant by the puddles. Julian Haverford. He took the front steps 2 at a time, coat flapping like a matador's cape, cigarette glowing between gloved fingers. Uncle Reginald, he shouted into the open door. For God's sake, someone tell me the old boy's all right. Poirot and Hastings emerged from the shadows of the hall just as Mrs. de la Fontaine appeared, apron clutched to her bosom like a shield. You're too late, Mr. Julian, she said, voice trembling. Sir Reginald is beyond help. Julian's handsome face crumpled, theatrically at first, then with genuine shock as the words sank in. The cigarette fell from his lips and hissed out in a puddle. Dead? You're joking. He can't be. I spoke to him yesterday. He was perfectly fit. Perfectly fit men do not have their throats opened in locked greenhouses, monsieur, Poirot observed mildly. Julian spun toward the voice. Recognition flickered. Poirot? Good Lord, he really did send for you. Then the full meaning struck him. Locked greenhouse, throat opened. You mean murder? He pushed past them, making for the rear of the house. Hastings caught his arm. Steady on. The police surgeon's on his way. Nothing to see that will help. Julian shook him off with surprising strength. He was my uncle, damn you. I have every right. Poirot watched the performance with clinical interest. Grief, certainly. Rage, undoubtedly. But beneath both, calculation. Very well, Poirot said. Come, but touch nothing. Julian stopped dead on the threshold. Sir Reginald still sat in the wicker chair, head bowed now as though in prayer, the black lily across his knees like a dark communion wafer. The blood had dried to a lacquer. Julian made a sound, half sob, half retch, and turned away, pressing a handkerchief to his mouth. Poirot observed him closely. You telephoned at 11 o'clock, I am told, from your club in St. James's. Yes, White's. Dozens of fellows heard me. Indeed. And you left London? When? 12:15. Drove like the devil. Roads are a disgrace. Yet the milk train would have been faster. Julian's eyes flashed. I don't travel with cattle, Mr. Poirot. Of course not. Poirot circled the body slowly. Tell me, monsieur, when you last spoke to your uncle, did he mention changing his will? Julian hesitated a fraction too long. He mentioned it every week for 10 years. Threatened to leave everything to botanical societies, native hospitals, Dr. Crow. Anyone but me. Said I was a disgrace to the name. And were you? Julian laughed bitterly. I like cards. I like fast cars and faster women. Hardly capital crimes. Debts, however, can be fatal, Poirot murmured. I am told you owe certain gentlemen in Soho a sum that would purchase a small estate. Julian flushed. That's my affair. Until it becomes your motive. Julian stared at him, then at the corpse, then back again. You think I killed him for money? Look at me, Poirot. I was in London. Ask anyone. I have asked. Your friends are most obliging. They recall you leaving White's at 11:30. They also recall you returning at 2, asking whether anyone had telephoned for you. A curious parenthesis of 2.5 hours. None. Julian opened his mouth, closed it. Poirot continued, almost kindly. The Bentley is fast, 100 miles an hour on a clear road. Essex is not far. A man could drive here, commit murder, and return before the brandy is finished. But the door was locked, Julian burst out. You said yourself, the only key was with you. Precisely. Poirot withdrew the lily key and held it up. Yet someone entered and left without it. Someone who knew Sir Reginald would sit in that exact chair at midnight, drugged by his own flowers, waiting for a ghost that never comes alone. Julian's nerve cracked. It wasn't me. I swear on. He was interrupted by a new voice from the doorway, dry, amused, edged with venom. Swear on what, Julian? Your uncle's blood is scarcely dry, and already you're swearing oaths. Dr. Lysander Crow stepped into the lamplight, coat unbuttoned, hands in pockets. His scar looked freshly raw in the yellow glow. Julian rounded on him. Keep out of this, Crow. You hated him more than any of us. True, Crow said pleasantly. But hatred is patient. I could have waited for nature to finish what the Amazon began. Why hurry the inevitable with melodrama? Poirot raised a hand. Enough. We deal in facts, not feelings. Monsieur Julien, your Bentley. May I see the logbook? Julian hesitated, then produced a small leather book from the car outside. Poirot flipped through it under the lamp. Curious. The mileage last night increased by exactly 192 miles, London and back, with a comfortable margin. And here? He tapped a page, a note in your own hand. Haverford, urgent, 11 p.m. Written, I think, before you left White's. Julian went very white. Poirot closed the book with a soft snap. You came, monsieur. You saw the greenhouse lit. Perhaps you even watched through the glass as your uncle sat waiting for death. But you did not enter. Why? Julian's voice was a whisper. Because the door was already locked from the inside, and the singing had started. I lost my nerve. Turned the car and drove back to town. Thought I'd brazen it out. He laughed, a broken sound. Looks like the perfect alibi, doesn't it? The nephew who arrived too late, because he arrived too early and ran away. Poirot regarded him for a long moment, then slipped the logbook into his pocket. Captain Hastings, escort Monsieur Julian to the morning room. Coffee, brandy, and a constable at the door. We are not quite finished with perfect alibis. As they left, Crow lingered. You believe him? He asked quietly. I believe he is a coward, Poirot replied. And cowards rarely cut throats. They prefer others to do it for them. Crow's scar twitched. Then who? A sudden violent gust rattled the greenhouse panes. The lamp flared, shadows leaping, and on the glass above their heads, as though traced by an invisible finger, fresh letters appeared in the condensation. The garden remembers. The words dripped downward like blood. From somewhere very close came the soft, unmistakable click of a revolver being cocked. Chapter 7. The Singing Ghost. The shot was deafening inside the glass cathedral. Poirot and Dr. Crow dropped to the damp slate as one. Shards rained from a high pane, glittering like ice. The lamp swung wildly, shadows leaping across the black lilies, as though the flowers themselves recoiled. Silence followed, thick and stunned. Poirot rose first, brushing glass from his shoulders with fastidious calm. Above us, he said. The ventilation gallery. Someone fired from the iron walkway. Crow's face was chalk beneath the scar. Who the devil? Someone who wishes Hercule Poirot to join Sir Reginald sooner than anticipated. Poirot's eyes swept the upper darkness. Show yourself. The game is advanced, but not yet finished. Only the wind answered, whistling through the broken pane. Hastings burst through the door, revolver in hand, Julian and Colonel Arbuthnot on his heels. Poirot, are you hit? Only my dignity, mon ami. The bullet passed between Dr. Crow and myself. Close enough to part the hair, far enough to miss the brain. A warning, not an execution. Arbuthnot's military eye took in the shattered glass. Sniper on the catwalk. Gone now. Must have climbed the outside ivy. Julian was shaking. This is madness. First uncle, now. Now, Poirot cut in. We stop reacting and begin acting. Captain Hastings, the gramophone horn you discovered earlier. Fetch it. Colonel, your service revolver. Dr. Crow, the green lantern from your laboratory. We are going to catch a ghost. They stood in a half circle beneath the greenhouse wall. Dawn was still far off, but the moon rode clear now, silvering the wet leaves. The black lilies inside the broken dome looked like mourners at their own funeral. Poirot held the brass gramophone horn aloft. Earlier tonight, the colonel saw a white figure. Miss Grey saw a green light. Someone has been staging a most convincing apparition. The singing, the lullaby in Portuguese, the phantom of Lady Eleanor, all designed to terrify Sir Reginald into that chair at the exact moment the lilies exhaled their poison. He turned to Crow. The pollen peaks at 12:47, does it not? You published the paper yourself. Crow inclined his head. 12:47 precisely, on the 10th anniversary of the bloom. The concentration is lethal only for 7 minutes. Enough time for a thread of spider silk to do its silent work. Poirot raised the horn like a huntsman. But the ghost must be summoned before it can kill. And ghosts, mes amis, require machinery. He placed the horn against the glass and blew a single low note. Nothing. Again, lower, longer. From deep within the lily beds came an answering vibration, a faint metallic click. There, Poirot whispered. The accomplice. He moved along the wall, the others following. At the eastern corner, half hidden by a giant gunera leaf, stood a small Edison wax cylinder phonograph on a tripod. Wires ran from it, spider thin, up the ivy and through the broken pane. Hastings lifted the lid. The cylinder still turned slowly. A woman's voice, ethereal, Portuguese, emerged. Durma, meu amor. O jardim lembra. Sleep, my love. The garden remembers. Crow's scar went livid. That is Anna's voice, he said hoarsely. My fiancée. She died the night Haverford abandoned us. He recorded her singing to the flowers. Kept the cylinder all these years. Poirot lifted the delicate diaphragm. Beneath it lay a second object, a small green dark lantern with a rotating shutter. When turned, it threw a spectral glow, the exact shade of foxfire. The ghost's lantern, Poirot said softly, and the trigger for the murder weapon. When the cylinder reaches its final groove, a spring releases. The spider silk garrote, anchored to the ventilation pane and weighted, slides across the aisle at throat height. Sir Reginald, paralyzed by pollen, never moved. The thread cut, retracted, vanished. The perfect invisible assassin. Arbuthnot stared. Good God, a clockwork murder. Set 17 years ago, Crow whispered. He built his own death trap and waited for the anniversary. Julian laughed, high, hysterical. Then none of us did it. It was suicide after all. Poirot's smile was wintry. Non, monsieur. Suicide does not fire warning shots at Hercule Poirot. He knelt, examining the ground beneath the phonograph. The gravel was disturbed, a clear set of footprints leading away. Small, narrow, a woman's shoe. Size 4, Poirot murmured. And here. He lifted a single strand caught on a thorn. Auburn hair. Our ghost has been most careless. He rose, eyes glittering in the moonlight. Madame de La Fontaine wears size 4 boots. And Miss Gray's hair, I think, matches perfectly. Julian went very still. Felicity? But she was in her room. Locked in by Captain Hastings? Yet locks are made to be picked by those who fear discovery more than confinement. Crow's voice was soft steel. Or perhaps the housekeeper has been Lady Eleanor's faithful priestess all these years, tending the ghost out of loyalty or hatred. Poirot turned toward the house. Every window was dark now, but one on the second floor glowed faintly, as though a candle had just been lit. Enough speculation, he said. The final act approaches. We have unmasked the mechanism. Now we unmask the hand that wound it. They moved as one towards the manor, footsteps echoing on the wet gravel. Behind them, the black lilies began to close their petals, one by one, as though the garden itself were shutting its eyes. But halfway across the lawn, the candle in the upper window went out, and from the open front door drifted a new sound, not singing this time, but the slow, deliberate scrape of a spade biting into earth. Someone was digging a grave. Chapter 8. The Thread of the Spider. The spade rang once more against stone and stopped. Poirot stood motionless on the terrace, the little group frozen behind him. Moonlight silvered the lawn. Every blade of grass seemed edged with steel. Inside, he said quietly, but softly. The spider is in its web, and the web is the entire house. They entered through the conservatory door. The air was warmer here, thick with the breath of orchids and the faint, lingering perfume of black lilies carried on someone's clothing. A single candle burned on the marble floor of the entrance hall, placed exactly in the center. Beside it lay the spade, fresh earth clinging to its blade, and a small pile of dark, rich soil that had no business being indoors. Poirot knelt. The soil was warm. From the white border, he murmured, where Lady Eleanor died. Someone has been digging up monkshood roots tonight. Arbuthnot's face was grim. Poison. Or sacrament, Poirot replied. Come. He led them not upstairs, but down, past the kitchens, down narrow stone stairs to the wine cellar. A second candle guttered on the lowest step. The iron-bound door to the old scullery stood ajar. Inside, the air was colder, damp with centuries. Another candle, another pile of earth, and in the center of the flagged floor, a perfect circle of black lily petals arranged like a dark star. In the middle of the star lay the missing weapon. Not a knife, not a garrote. A single strand of spider silk, perhaps 6 feet long, stretched between two iron hooks, driven into opposite walls. It shimmered faintly, catching the candlelight like a thread of moonspun glass. At its center hung a tiny drop of blood, Sir Reginald's blood, still wet. Crow exhaled, a sound almost of reverence. Nephila clavips. My God. He kept a colony alive all these years. Poirot did not touch the thread. Observe, the height is exactly that of a seated man's throat. When the phonograph spring released upstairs, a counterweight fell here. See the broken wine bottle pulling the silk taut across the greenhouse aisle 30 feet above. The ventilation shaft carried it like a bowstring. One silent stroke. Then the weight dropped. The thread slackened, and gravity drew it back down here, out of sight. The perfect pendulum murder. Julian swallowed audibly. But who wound the spring? Who set the cylinder spinning tonight? Footsteps overhead, light, hurried, answered for him. Poirot's eyes lifted to the ceiling. The one who has played ghost, secretary, and avenging angel all in one. Vite! They ran. Up the servants' stairs, along the upper corridor. Candle flames flattened as they passed. The door to Lady Eleanor's bedroom, untouched for 10 years, stood wide open. Inside, the room was exactly as death had left it. White counterpane turned down, a vase of dead monkshood on the nightstand, dust thick as grave cloth, except for the woman kneeling in the center of the rug, Felicity Gray. She wore a white nightgown soaked with rain and earth. Her auburn hair hung loose and wild. In her right hand, she held Sir Reginald's open locket. The wedding ring glinted inside. In her left, a small revolver, still smoking. On the floor before her lay the final piece, an open diary bound in green leather. Its pages fluttered, though no wind stirred. Poirot stopped in the doorway. Mademoiselle. Felicity looked up. Her face was streaked with tears and soil, but her eyes were steady, almost peaceful. It's finished, she said. He's at peace now. With her. She laid the revolver down carefully, as though it were made of glass. Hastings started forward. Poirot restrained him with a glance. Tell us, Poirot said gently. From the beginning. Felicity's voice was soft, almost dreamy. Sir Reginald was never sane after Brazil. He brought back the black lilies and the gilt, in equal measure. Anna, Dr. Crow's fiancée, died because Reginald wanted the glory alone. He recorded her voice that last night, laughing at him for his fear of the flowers. He played it over and over until the cylinder wore thin. Then Eleanor found out. Found the diary he kept hidden, the confession. She threatened to expose him, so he poisoned her with monkshood and called it suicide. She touched the diary with reverent fingers. I found this 6 months ago, behind a panel in the greenhouse. He caught me reading it. Instead of rage, he wept, said he had waited 10 years for someone to punish him. Gave me the ring, the key, the combination to the phonograph. Begged me to finish it on the anniversary. Said only then could he join Eleanor. Crow made a strangled sound. He staged his own murder. No, Felicity whispered. He staged his execution. I was the hand. The lilies were the jury. The spider silk was the rope. She looked at Poirot, almost pleading. I loved him. In a twisted way, he loved me. But love cannot forgive what he did to Anna, to Eleanor, to all of us. Poirot's voice was very quiet. And the shot just now. To keep you from stopping me completing the ritual. The roots I dug, they were to plant on his grave. Monkshood for Eleanor, black lilies for Anna, a garden that would never forget. Silence filled the room like incense. Then Crow stepped forward, slowly, as though approaching a wounded animal. You could have come to me, he said hoarsely. 17 years, I waited for justice. You stole it. Felicity met his eyes. No, Lysander. I gave it to him. The justice he begged for. Poirot moved at last. He picked up the revolver, broke it, emptied the remaining cartridges into his palm. Felicity Grey, he said formally, you will come with us now. The law is less poetic than gardens, but it is thorough. She rose without resistance. At the door she paused, looked back once at the untouched bed. Tell them, she said, that the singing has stopped. And indeed, as they led her down the corridor, the house was silent. No wind, no voices, only the soft ticking of clocks counting toward morning. But in the greenhouse, far below, a single black lily, missed by every hand, slowly opened its throat to the first pale hint of dawn and exhaled. Chapter 9. The garden remembers morning. Came to Haverford Manor like a reluctant confession. Grey light filtered through the broken greenhouse roof and lay in pale rectangles across the slate. Sir Reginald's body had been removed an hour earlier. Only the chalk outline remained, a white ghost on the floor. The black lilies stood with petals half furled, as though ashamed of what they had witnessed. They were all there. Poirot had arranged them in a loose semicircle between the orchid benches. Colonel Arbuthnot, rigid in his scarlet jacket, eyes red-rimmed. Dr. Lysander Crow, scar livid against pallor. Julian Haverford, dishevelled and sullen, handcuffed to a constable. Mrs. Delafontaine, apron starched even now, hands clasped so tightly, the knuckles blanched, and Felicity Grey, pale but composed, wrists bound with silk cord rather than steel, Poirot's courtesy to a confessed murderess. 2 local constables flanked the doors. Inspector Japp, summoned from Colchester at first light, stood beside Poirot, arms folded, moustache bristling with professional irritation. Damnedest thing I ever saw, Japp muttered. Clockwork murder, ghost voices, spider silk. You'll have the yard laughing at me for a year, Poirot. Let them laugh, mon ami, Poirot replied. Truth is often more fantastic than fiction. He turned to the assembly. The little Belgian seemed taller this morning, as though the solution had added inches to his spine. Monsieur, Madame, Mademoiselle, the drama is ended. The curtain falls, yet one last scene remains, the explanation. You have a right to hear how the impossible became the inevitable. He began to walk slowly between the lilies. From the beginning, we were meant to see a locked room mystery, a suicide dressed as murder, or a murder dressed as suicide. Sir Reginald himself arranged the stage, the key sent to Poirot, the locked door, the paralytic Bolin, the singing ghost, all to convince us that no human hand could have struck the blow. But human hands are ingenious when guided by guilt. 17 years ago, in Brazil, Sir Reginald Haverford committed the original sin. He abandoned Dr. Crowe and Ana Ribeiro to fever and death, so that he alone might claim the discovery of Lilium Noctis Amazonas. Anna's last lullaby he recorded on a wax cylinder, an act of sentiment or of cruelty, who can say? He brought the cylinder home, along with living spiders and a conscience that never slept. 10 years later, his wife Eleanor discovered the diary of confession hidden in the greenhouse. Threatened with exposure, Sir Reginald poisoned her with monkshood and staged suicide. Remorse began then, slow and corrosive. Enter Miss Felicity Grey. 6 months ago, she found the diary. Sir Reginald, instead of silencing her, begged her to become his executioner. He prepared everything: the phonograph trigger, the counterweight in the cellar, the spider silk garrote. He chose the anniversary of Anna's death. He chose the hour when the lilies would drug him into helplessness. All that was required was someone to start the cylinder and let justice run its course. Felicity agreed. Love, pity, horror, she felt all three. She became the ghost. White gown, green lantern, Anna's recorded voice drifting across the garden to herd Sir Reginald to his chair. When the pollen peaked, the mechanism did the rest. The thread kissed his throat, retracted, vanished. She fired one shot at Poirot, only to prevent interference with the final ritual, planting monkshood and black lily on the grave she intended to dig. Yet one detail betrayed her. Poirot stopped beside the chalk outline and lifted a small evidence envelope. A single auburn hair caught on the phonograph tripod. And this. He produced the green leather diary, page 147. A fresh fingerprint in lily pollen. Miss Grey's fingerprint, placed there last night when she opened the diary to read Sir Reginald his death sentence one final time. Felicity raised her head. Her eyes were clear, almost luminous. "I do not deny it," she said quietly. "He begged me on his knees, said only a woman's hand could give him the absolution the church denied. I was to be both daughter and nemesis." Crow made a choked sound. "And Anna, did you think of her?" "Every moment," Felicity answered. He died hearing her voice. That was the point. Colonel Arbuthnot stirred. "Then the ghost I saw." Miss Grey in Lady Eleanor's nightgown, carrying the dark lantern. "You were meant to see her, Colonel. Your testimony would convince everyone the supernatural had returned." Julian laughed, a cracked sound. "So I drove here like a fool for nothing. Perfect alibi, because I was too much a coward to knock on a locked door." Mrs. Delafontaine spoke for the first time, voice trembling. "I knew none of this. I swear it." Poirot inclined his head. "You are innocent, madame. You heard singing and believed the house haunted, as Sir Reginald wished the world to believe." He turned last to Crow. "And you, Doctor, you suspected, perhaps, but proof eluded you for 17 years. Last night, you tended your cultures, while vengeance walked the garden without you." Crow's scar twitched. "I would have killed him cleanly. A bullet, not this florid theatre. Precisely why Sir Reginald did not choose you. He required poetry." Silence settled, heavy as dew. Japp cleared his throat. Well, Miss Grey, anything to say before we take you away? Felicity looked once around the greenhouse, at the black lilies now closing against the daylight, at the chalk outline of the man she had both loved and executed. Only this, she said softly. The garden remembers. And now, finally, it can sleep. Poirot regarded her for a long moment, something almost like sorrow in his green eyes. Sleep is not always granted to those who dispense justice, mademoiselle. Sometimes memory is the heavier sentence. He signaled to the constables. As they led her out, the sun breached the glass roof and struck the lilies full. For one heartbeat, every black petal flushed crimson, as though the flowers themselves bled in farewell. Then the color faded, and they were only flowers again. Chapter 10. Little Grey Cells in the Morning Light. The greenhouse had become a courtroom of sunlight. Beams slanted through the shattered roof and struck the black lilies, turning their petals the color of old morning velvet. Condensation ran down the panes like tears. Somewhere a robin sang, absurdly cheerful. Poirot stood at the exact spot where Sir Reginald had died. The chalk outline was already smudged. Soon the gardeners would sweep it away, and the lilies would drink the last of the blood. He turned to the little group assembled for the final time. Japp had gone to telephone the chief constable. Only the household remained, and the two constables who would never again see a case like this. Before you disperse, Poirot said, voice soft yet carrying to every corner. One last accounting. Not for the police, those facts are complete, but for the living, who must carry the memory. He began to walk, hands clasped behind his back, the perfect lecturer among his specimens. Sir Reginald Haverford was a man of brilliance and of cowardice in equal measure. He stole a discovery, abandoned two souls to death, and spent the remainder of his life constructing an exquisite cage of remorse. The black lilies were not merely plants. They were his confessor, his jury, his gallows. Every year on the anniversary, he waited for them to judge him. This year, he ensured they would. He chose his executioner carefully. Not Dr. Crow, whose hatred was too honest. Not Colonel Arbuthnot, whose loyalty was too old. Not his nephew, whose greed was too petty. He chose the one person who could love him and condemn him in the same breath. Felicity Grey. She believed she acted from justice. Perhaps she did. Yet justice administered in secret, with music and flowers and spider silk, is perilously close to vengeance. And vengeance, mes amis, always leaves a second corpse, the soul of the avenger. He stopped beside the tallest lily, stroked a petal with one gloved finger. Regard this flower. Beautiful, lethal. It opens only when it senses the warmth of a human throat nearby. Sir Reginald bred it so. He bred his own death as carefully as he bred his orchids. Colonel Arbuthnot cleared his throat. And the ghost business? All that singing and green light. Pure theatre. Pure necessity, Poirot replied. Sir Reginald required witnesses who would swear the room was locked, the house haunted, the crime impossible. The Colonel's shell shock, Mrs. Delafontaine's superstition, Miss Grey's terror, all were exploited. Even I, Hercule Poirot, was cast in the drama. The detective who arrives too late, holding the only key, forced to admit defeat by the supernatural. A final vanity to baffle the great, Poirot. Julian Haverford gave a bitter laugh. He needn't have bothered. The will leaves everything to the Royal Botanic Gardens anyway. I get nothing but debts. Dr. Crow spoke for the first time, voice raw. And Anna? Does her name die with him? Poirot turned to him. Non, docteur. Her name lives in every black lily that will bloom hereafter. Sir Reginald's bequest includes a codicil. The Brazilian specimens are to be renamed Lilium noctis Arne in perpetuity. Your fiancé's lullaby will echo in botanical journals long after the rest of us are forgotten. That, perhaps, was the only honest apology he ever made. Crow closed his eyes. A single tear tracked the length of his scar. Mrs. Delafontaine dabbed at her face with the corner of her apron. What happens to the house, sir? It will pass to the nation as a research station. The lilies will remain under glass, tended but never again allowed to judge a man. Arbuthnot straightened his shoulders. And Miss Grey? She will stand trial. The evidence is complete: diary, fingerprints, hair, the revolver. Yet an English jury may hesitate to hang a woman who believes she carried out a dying man's wish. We shall see what 12 honest citizens make of poetry and spider silk. Poirot looked once more around the greenhouse, at the broken roof, the silent plants, the place where a man had arranged his own exquisite extinction. One last observation, he said quietly. We speak of locked rooms and invisible garrets, but the true prison was never glass. It was guilt. Sir Reginald locked himself inside it for 17 years and threw away the key. All the singing ghosts in the world could not have harmed him had he not first opened the door from within. He bowed, small and precise. And now, mes amis, the case is closed. The garden may sleep. Let us leave it to the sun. They filed out slowly, Arbuthnot ramrod straight, Julian already calculating his next gamble, Crow carrying the weight of a name restored, Mrs. Delafontaine clutching her apron like a rosary. Hastings lingered. Jolly rum business, Poirot. Almost feel sorry for the blighter. Poirot paused on the threshold, breathing the warm, heavy air one final time. Feel sorry for the living, mon ami. The dead, at least, are beyond regret. He stepped into the morning light. Behind him, the black lilies, every one, closed their petals against the day, as though the garden itself had heard the verdict and accepted it. Far away, in a police van winding toward Colchester, Felicity Grey began to sing under her breath. The Portuguese lullaby, soft, almost tender. The constable driving shivered and turned the wireless louder, but the melody followed them all the way to the gates. Some songs, once started, never truly end